Okay, hey, so Amanda's son got a nasty case of poison ivy right between his eyes. Poor kid. I'm a little worried that he's going to scratch and, spread that a little bit. So instead of coming home and doing the dandelion tea to make the dandelion soap, I've decided to go ahead and process a jewelweed and plantain soap. So you see right here, this is probably about 16 ounces of finely macerated jewelweed and plantain. I just put it in the food processor and added water until it became a slurry. And I'm going to let this sit probably at least overnight, cover it with saran wrap and put it in the refrigerator and let all the goodness of those herbs get into that water. And tomorrow I'll post an update, because tomorrow I'll be straining it and then using it, the juice that's left over, as a measurement for the base of a jewelweed, I got poison ivy soap. Now, this left over here is also jewelweed. It has been cleaned, and what I'm going to do is coarsely chop this. Soap is one thing, but sometimes when you itch, you need a little bit of instantaneous relief. So, you know how to locate jewelweed. It's actually in the family of impatiens. It's a wild impatient flower. There's two different kinds that constitute jewelweed. One has a yellow bloom, one has an orange bloom. Actually, we have both of those here on Bebo Farm. So this is probably another 8 to 10 ounces of fresh jewelweed, rinsed and cleaned. You can find it now before it blooms. You're better off getting the jewelweed now. Normally, anytime you see me telling you about infusing an herb, what I'm going to tell you first is absolutely make sure that it's dry. Dry herbs infuse in oil because if they're wet, you can have the opportunity to have mold growth. But these herbs are going in wet because, number one, in the soap, this juice will be cooked. And number two, in the Jewelweed anti-itch topical, it will actually be pickled, because what I'm going to do is take this coarsely chopped organic jewelweed and a glass jar, and I'm going to loosely pack this in here. When I do dry herbs, I usually aim for filling the dry herb 3/4 of the way up and then filling the rest of the jar with oil, and then I'll go back the second day after some of the oil has been absorbed by the herbs, and I will put more oil in there. But since this is green and fresh, I'm going to fill this all the way up, get all the rest of this jewelweed in here. And there we go. Well, this isn't an instant, it's an instantaneous feel better when you use it, but it's something that actually takes a few weeks. And the next thing I'm going to do is I have some organic apple cider vinegar. You can use the really expensive kind, you can get the less expensive kind, which I believe I got this at Aldi's. I just had it laying around. I was going to eat it or drink it, but I decided not to. And into the jar it goes. So it's all the way full. The less air you have available, the better off you'll be. Now, one thing that I will tell you that's a good hint to know when you're infusing fresh herbs into a vinegar. Vinegar's strong. Anyway, vinegar is caustic, and so rather than just put a lid on top of this jar, what I'm going to do is cover it with plastic wrap, or maybe even cover it with a piece of parchment paper, then put the screw lid on it, simply because any of that acid from the vinegar gets on that lid, it's going to cause it to rust, and that's another something that we don't want, anything extra in our vinegar. That's going to sit for about 3 weeks, so regularly shaking and turning it 2 or 3 times a week, And then at the end of 4 weeks, I'll do an update video and show you the bottling process of getting that into dropper bottles, so that when you have an itch that you don't necessarily want to scratch because you're afraid of spreading your poison ivy, you can use a little bit of this homemade DIY plantain and jewelweed vinegar to take out the sting. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button or like and share the video. I can get all the views, or I can need all the views that I can get.